Hey all, Mark Vega, the Run Long After 60 podcast. If this is the first time you're here, woo, I'm glad you found us. Welcome. If this is not your first rodeo, well, you know how this goes. Every episode of the Run Long After 60 podcast starts with me out on a run, not behind a microphone, not at a desk or in a studio, but out here moving. This podcast is for generally older people who just need to keep moving. But when I started, I thought I found one thing, but we are 37 episodes into this wonderful project, and I've met so many amazing people over 60 doing crazy hard things, super long distances, and they are the most giving and charming people you'll ever meet. And I'm so grateful to have encountered them. This is a transition episode though. I'm gonna call it my first self-supported episode. What does that mean in FKT and ultramarathon parlance? What it means is that I'm out there doing it on my own, but really all my supplies and all my support is on the background. It's in the background. So this transition episode is about me doing something I've been looking forward to doing, and that is turning over the reins for production and post-production. So far I've been writing and shooting and editing everything every step of the way. And I've enjoyed it. I love it. It has a lot of fun, but it takes a lot of time, and I'm not proficient enough to be able to really hit the deadlines that I'd love to deliver. So I found a great production partner, and hopefully with this very episode, this will be the first version where it's not me behind the scenes doing the edits and cleaning up the audio and all those things. So I'm really excited that they're here. So what's the episode about? Well, it's not really about my backstory. If you've listened to any episodes at all, you've probably known some of that data. But this really pulls out some of the insights I've gotten from these amazing guests, from Katra Corbett to Paul James Johnson to Kevin Pleeger and Stephanie Irving to John Parks and Jim Glenn and Ray Mina and Dr. Tanya Olson and many others, 37, 38 people that we actually got to speak with. And the amount of insight I've gotten from them is almost overwhelming. I thought the podcast was going to be one thing, but once I started talking to these people doing super hard things at almost any age, I'm blown away. Miriam Gilbert, she does track ultramarathons. She's out there all the time. I feel like she's always out on the track running. So many people. Bobby Keogh, Ed Eddinghausen, Katra Corbett. Those three people are all on the rarefied air of the list of those who've done over 100 races of 100-mile distance or longer. And there's only 40 of those around the planet. And I've gotten to speak to 3 of them already. So these are inspiring people who really cheer people on. They've taught me how to understand the ultra running community and to not just run races, but to really experience the community and go out and experience the races, not just to run them. Don't miss out on the community. Don't miss out on crewing and pacing. It was transformative, and it has been transformative. So some of the things that won't change in this new transition is Murphy Otter, who does our graphics and animation. She'll still be there, containing and bringing the wholesome content that just brings a smile to everybody, including me. And Christopher Neil Johnson, who is the composer who writes music for the show, he'll continue to play that role as well. So everything else is me, but this time I'll be able to find more guests and just talk to people. And I'm really grateful for that. Okay, well, you know how this goes. At this point, this is when I say, are you ready? Because I'm ready. Are you ready? I'm ready. It's time. It's time. This time for me. It's time for Mark Vega. Let's go. It didn't take more than half a second for me to say yes. Paul James Johnson had just finished telling me about Cooldown, his fourth 200-mile finish, and his fourth belt buckle, which means in Cooldown 250 terms, you get another much bigger buckle when you do 4 for the 1,000 miles, right? 1,000 miles covered at that distance. We were recording the interview, and right there, mid-conversation, he stopped and he said, "Mark, I know you're interested in 200s. It's such a different beast. I have an idea, an invitation. You don't have to say yes right now. You don't have to answer. But why don't you come out and crew and pace me at Cooldown in 2026?" He didn't invite me to show up for one moment and leave. He invited me to do whatever I was willing to do. So I showed up the day it started, and I didn't leave until everyone packed up and went home. About 6 days. I crewed him from the start with his team on Monday, and then a few days later on Thursday, I paced him 44 miles from mile 190 to mile 234 in the 254-mile race. That means by the time I picked him up, his legs already had covered 190 miles. He knew I was slower than his other pacers, and that's exactly why he put me there. At that point in the race, slow is fine. After mile 234, last year, the runners go on alone. I was his last pacer before he had to finish it himself. Somewhere in those miles, in the dark, in the middle of the night, the middle of the Arizona night, 2 lawyers. That's a good joke right there. 2 lawyers. Him from Detroit and me from Los Angeles. We started inventing ridiculous rules for running games that he and his crew members had already created. But being lawyers, we added some new rules for those running games to keep our minds occupied. But when that happened, or sometime along those moments, something shifted in me. It wasn't about him finishing yet again. It was something else. And that's what this episode is about. Section 1 of this self-supported effort, the warm-up, and the decision why I'm handing off post-production. 37 episodes. I shot every one of them. I edited every one of them. I did have help on 2 things from the very beginning. At Murphy Otter, who created the hippo avatar you all know, has done most of the graphics and animation. And Christopher Neil Johnson has made every piece of original music for the show. Both of them are staying exactly where they are. Nothing about that changes. Everything else has been me, but starting with this episode 38, that's changing. I'm bringing on a post-production partner, a team that handles editing and post-production using human-assisted AI tools, plus the reels and social clips that go out around every episode. Done well and done consistently. Why? Well, I love being in front of the camera. I love editing too, but I'm not an editor. I just did it because someone had to. And here's the real reason it's time to let that go. In the moments that actually changed me on this whole journey didn't happen in an edit bay. They happened crewing and pacing a friend through a 200-mile race in the middle of the night. I don't want post-production to keep me from more of that. Okay, section 2, time to get to work. What this means for the rest of the year. Concretely, here's what this means for my running through 2026. Bigfoot is a 205-mile point-to-point race that loops around the base of Mount St. Helens in Washington. I was registered to race it in August. I deferred to 2027, and instead, the 3rd week of August, I'm going out there for a week to volunteer. I asked specifically to be on the sweeping crew, and I'm grateful they said yes. There are 5 or 6 of us on that crew. And sweeping means that we come through after the race is over, pulling trail markers and kind of clearing trash, making sure the very last runner gets home safe. So it's safety. Two people talked me into this part separately without knowing the other had said it. John Parks, a podcast guest, a Destination Trails, that's the running company, runner with his own Bigfoot story, a DNF and then a redemption finish, told me that if I really wanted to feel Bigfoot, I should go sweep it, get my boots on the actual course, because it's more than just getting a buckle. And then Catrick Corbett, one of the greatest ultra runners of all time, hundreds and hundreds of races, Dirt Diva 333, more 200 milers than anyone can count. Sober as all get out. She told me the same thing. And here's what struck me. When she told me her best stories, and she wrote an amazing memoir as well, a book, the stories she told weren't usually about her finishes, her many, many races. They were about sweeping, about being at an aid station, about what happens in the in-between, away from the start and the finish line. When two people like that tell you the same thing independently, you listen. So I stopped rushing. I realized I didn't need to sign up and train and race. Cocodona taught me to slow everything down and actually soak it in. Here's one small example of that. While we were crewing, Paul James Johnson, I needed to buy a puffy jacket. That was required gear for pacing him in the middle of the night. I found a gear shop open at 6 a.m. on Whiskey Row in Prescott, Arizona during Cocodona, because of course it was open. It was Cocodona. I walked in, and literally it's on that street. It's on this right by the square. It's in Whiskey Row. I walked in early in the morning. I found the jacket, and I acknowledged, of course, that I wasn't, getting a belt buckle for this. But as it was happening, I kind of wrapped inside of it, and I said, I will always have that Whiskey Row puffy jacket. I love that jacket. I got it because I was part of the community, participating right in it, not racing through it. That's the same spirit I'm bringing to Bigfoot in August. Sweeping, boots on the course, making sure the last runner gets home. And then September 11th and 12th, I'm racing Run Woodstock, Hallucination 100, a 16-mile loop. You run it 6 times, total elevation under 8,000 feet. There is a connection here too. Kevin Flieger, a guest on the show, was one of 3 finishers in the 60 to 69 age group at Cocodona in 2025. 14 people started, 3 finished. He was the first of those 3. And he did it in 2024 as well. He didn't run Cocodona in 2026, but he's run Woodstock twice, and he gave me real insight on how to approach the course. He even offered to pace me for a few laps since he doesn't live too far from there. And I said, yes, and thank you. Next year in February of 2027, I'm looking forward to running the Grand Masters Ultra in the 100-mile distance with a 48-hour cutoff. And in between Woodstock and Grand Masters, I'm confident I'll add a couple more races to the calendar, probably longer ones. Here's something I want to try: a timed event, a 48-hour timed race, or even longer, a multi-day. And if I can find a track ultra, I want to try that too. Miriam Gilbert, a guest on the show, is an incredible athlete who just goes for days and days and days and days and days. And I'm genuinely intrigued by that format. Mark Workmeister and Bobby Keogh both told me, go try it. And so did AJW and Ed Eddinghausen. All of them said the same thing. Do a timed event. Do a track event. Just go run some races, Mark. So I am. All right. Section 3 of this self-supported effort. Here comes the elevation. What 37 episodes actually taught me. So with that context, here's what I want to walk through. Not a highlight reel. This is a handful of things that kept showing up across 37 episodes, whether I was looking for them or not. Number 1, jogging the flats, redefining community. It's not just the finish line. Every guest I've had on this show, when I ask them about a race, eventually says the same word: community. The aid station volunteers were great. The course markings were good. The race director did it right. Bobby Keogh, 77 years old, 238 races on Ultra Sign Up, told me he doesn't really sign up for races anymore. He signs up for race directors. Now, he's got 108 100-mile races and 238 races on Ultra Sign Up. So what a pedigree. But Bobby, thank you very much. That stuck with me. And here's what I'm realizing. I think I've been saying that word, community, for 37 episodes without fully feeling what it means, because I didn't really understand it until I got to be a crew person, a pacer, and a volunteer all in the same week, doing different jobs at different times for different reasons, all in service of the same race. And I think that's part of why multi-day events pull at me the way they do. A 100-miler, even at its longest, is basically one day. Western states makes a lot of noise, a giant splash. It's historic. It's the first. It's the biggest. It's the best. It's everything. But the cutoff is 30 hours. A 200-mile race, a multi-day event, that's different. That's days. That's enough time to hold more than one role, to be useful in more than one way. I can bring my cowbells and cheer on anyone that I see on the course. I've done it. I grew up in this sport at KH races, Kira Henninger's races. That's really the foundation of how I first understood what this sport could be. The aid stations there were incredible. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, getting good food handed to you mid-race. But I know now that wasn't just my own experience as a runner. That's how it is. It's available as crew, as volunteers, as sweeper. And it's not just a couple of hours either. It's committing to an event, an experience, and trusting that it will be just as grand and meaningful, whether you're the one running or not. That's the wisdom of Catra Corbett. That's the wisdom John Parks gave me. That's the wisdom Paul James Johnson gave me without ever saying it directly. He just invited me out and let me find it for myself. All right, next part. Boom. 2, hiking the uphills. Sacred ground. The trash we leave behind. Yeah, it's uphills, all right. Not easy, maybe. Smokey the Bear taught me about the wilderness, and so did Yogi Bear and Boo Boo. Those are really the 3 bears that raised me on this stuff. Smokey told us, at a minimum, don't burn the place down. I don't remember him telling us to pick up our trash. Maybe he did it later. I don't know. I just never caught it. But Yogi and Boo Boo, they stole picnic baskets constantly. I have no idea what they did with all those baskets afterwards, but I don't think they ever left trash behind. Somehow, 2 cartoon bears stealing food from tourists had better trail ethics than what I actually found out there. I had an opportunity to go clean up a 5-mile stretch of trail in Malibu, the same stretch where a trail marathon I'd helped with had started and ended that morning. I walked it in the middle of the day. Good light, sunshine was beautiful. And I picked up everything I could see within about 5 feet of the trail on either side. Now, this was mostly maintained, well-trafficked ground, not just runners, but all kinds of people use it. I found maybe 5 partial gel wrapper tops from the actual race. That was it from the runners. The race director, that's what she really wanted. Make sure our trail runners, don't leave a mess behind. So that was my job, and I was happy to do it, and I did that. So I picked up the trash from our racers, but everything else, and there was a lot of it, was napkins and paper towels and Kleenex and water bottles and bottle caps, other waste, things that had nothing to do at all with our race. It was horrifying. It genuinely saddened me. That trail was built to last, but not against what people leave behind on it. So here's what I want to say clearly to anyone listening: pick up the trash you see, all of it, not just yours. Bring a compostable bag with you every time you're out there and fill it up, whether it's your neighborhood loop or your favorite park. There's an idea called the tragedy of the commons. You remember that from high school or college or late night coffee and tea debates or whatever your beverage was at the time? A political economist named William Forster Lloyd described it back in 1832. He was watching shared pastures in England get destroyed because everyone assumed someone else would take care of them. We get a community of human beings after a certain population number, and that's what happens on the trails. People think someone else will pick it up. Don't be that person. And if you see that person, say something, point it out. I don't get worked up about much, but finding human waste left out there for the next person to stumble onto, that's not acceptable to me. Keep this ground sacred. It deserves better. All right, here we go. We did the uphills. Now we're going to just about hit the single track. This is the evolving why. Near the end of almost every interview, I've asked guests some version of the same question: how has your why evolved over time? And I get a different answer every single time. So I had to ask myself. My first marathon was New York 2016. The why back then was simple. The last time I tried to run a marathon, I had my second stroke. So this was in part a question: can I do this? Are the strokes going to slow me down? Keep me from staying plugged into life? They didn't. I crossed that finish line. But here's what I've come to understand: I don't run because I had a stroke. That's not actually the why. That's just the story that got me to the starting lines. But the real why is something quieter than that. It's gratitude. I'm grateful for the body I have and what it's still capable of. Perspective is everything. We get to choose whether we're satisfied, content, in service to other people, or not. And I chose that. Every so often, my why will attach itself to a particular race or a particular group of people I want to show up for. But underneath all of that, the real answer hasn't changed. I run because I can. And that matters to me. I want my family to see that. I want to set an example of gratitude for the life I have, the health I have, the body I have, all of it. That's my why. It's evolved from, can I do this, to I'm grateful that I can. All right, back to the uphills. You ready? More uphills. Come on. That's this section. Number 4, DNF, data, not failure. A few months ago, I introduced a term I want to own, and I want to come back to it today because I think it's worth repeating until it sticks. DNF. You know what it stands for, and the race results did not finish. It's what gets posted, or more often not posted, when a runner doesn't cross the line within the parameters the race established. Binary. Not a judgment, but it's final. There's no asterisk. There's no explanation. But I want you to hear it differently every time you encounter it from here on out. When you see DNF, I want you to read data, not failure. That's not a motivational reframe. It's not me telling you that every DNF is secretly a win. Now, I'm not interested in that. What I'm saying is that DNF is a label, and labels don't teach you anything. Data does. I've had 4 DNFs of my own, one in 2019, then again in 2025, and I had 2 in 2026. And I built a framework after that. And what I built the framework around is this. Most runners walk away from a DNF with either one of two responses. They're ashamed and they don't want to talk about it, or they grab the first explanation that protects their ego and they move on without actually learning anything. None of those responses is useful. Rather, neither of those responses is useful. Both of them cost you something. The framework I created has 5 lenses, and you don't need to memorize all 5 right now, but here are the 2 that matter the most in the immediate aftermath of any race, finished or not. First is system constraints. Before you assign any meaning to what happened, you have to understand what the race was actually asking of you. Cutoffs exist because of permits, daylight, volunteer staffing, and safety logistics, not because of any judgment about who deserves to finish. If your movement rate was incompatible with the race's time boundaries, that's not a character flaw. That's a math problem with a specific solution. The second is distinctioning between fitness and speed. That's the one that costs older runners the most. And it's the insight I keep coming back to in my own training. You can be aerobically fit, mentally tough, well fueled, dialed in on gear, and still be too slow for the course. Fitness and speed are not the same thing. After 50, after 60, what erodes quietly and consistently, unless you train against it deliberately, is strength. And strength is what supports speed. That's the variable most of us are not addressing directly enough. So, if you've had a DNF recently or years ago and you haven't sat with it analytically, that's what I want you to do. Not to punish yourself, not to build a story around it, just to ask, what was the actual constraint? One sentence. The simplest, most accurate reason the outcome occurred. I was not fast enough for the cutoffs on that course that day. That's a sentence you can do something with. I failed is a sentence that goes nowhere. I put together a full guide, these 5 lenses, a post-race review worksheet that you can use within 48 hours of any race, a section on how cutoffs are actually set, and the connection between sarcopenia and speed that every runner over 50 needs to understand. I'll be making that available soon and more on that later. But for now, DNF, data, not failure. That's what it means. That's what it's always meant. We just didn't have the language for it yet. All right. After the uphills, you ready? Finally, we get to run some downhills. Gravity! Downhills, running downhills. Number 5, running downhills if I can. Reinvention after disruption. The body changes, the identity doesn't have to. Ooh. Every guest on this show has dealt with some kind of injury or disruption. Ray Mina, knee surgery. Miriam Gilbert, Gail Leedy, even Dr. Tonya Olson, who fixes other people's feet for a living, has had her own issues to work through. Ray's version of this really stuck with me. He's fast marathons, fast hundreds, hard races run well. And now, getting older, he elected to have knee surgery. And after that, he knows he's slower. He doesn't like that. That's the disruption. What happens when the body changes, but the identity, fast, doesn't want to let go? And then there's Jim Glenn, the rebuilt runner. He was on the podcast with one hip and both knees replaced. There was a stretch where he couldn't run at all for years, and now he runs all the time. In fact, on April 4th, 2026, he was awarded a Guinness Book of World Records recognition for being fastest marathon with bilateral total knee replacements male. Come on, I want that t-shirt, Jim. Nobody gets to keep their body exactly the way it was. That's not optional for any of us. But there's something powerful in figuring out what it means to move now with the body you actually have, not the one you used to have. I can point to plenty of my own. Both knees, arthroscopic surgery, a motorcycle accident at 16 cost me my spleen. Who needs it? And I said at the time, and the 2 strokes. Those are the big ones. But here's the truth. I didn't start racing until after the strokes. I did run in the military years before, but it wasn't a priority. After the strokes, it became one. But really, it became a challenge. Could I get it done? I had 2 strokes. I didn't care. I wanted to prove to myself that I could still do this. So I did. And now I'm getting older and I'm getting slower. Sarcopenia is real. That's muscle loss with age. So I'm doing strength work. I'm paying attention to blood work, trying to actually understand what's happening inside this body instead of ignoring it. All of it, the spleen, the strokes, the knees, every disruption has been an opportunity to reinvent who I am after the body changed. That's the real lesson underneath Ray's question. We can hold on to the good stuff, and perspective is everything. Whoo! I love those downhills. All right, another hill. You ready for another hill climb? Let's go. Number 6, another hill climb to a plateau. Late starts and second acts. What might be next for me? Of the 37 people I've interviewed on this show, more than half didn't start running until they were at least in their 40s. A big chunk of those didn't start until their 50s. Well, that's my story too. I didn't really start running until my 50s. Had my first stroke at 51. That's when I jumped back in. I trained for about 6 months, working toward a marathon. Before I got to run it, I had a second stroke. What a challenge. And honestly, what a wonderful one. Why just recover from 1 stroke and come back to running? Why not have 2? I like that part of the story. But that was 10 years ago, and I'm ready to push forward. Here's what these 37 conversations have actually taught me practically. I can be a lot more deliberate about how I choose my races. The more I understand about this community, the formats, the distances, the cultures inside each one, the smarter I can get about it. Lion Caldwell ran one of the earliest 100-milers in the country back at the old New York 24-hour and 6-day events in the 70s. He's older now. And when it was one of the most fun conversations I've had on this show with him, he told me something I hadn't really internalized until he said it. He said, I only sign up for 48-hour timed events now. I know I can cover 100 miles in 48 hours, usually on a flat surface, but not always. His advice was simple. Go sign up for a 48-hour race. No pressure. You can walk it if you need to. Doesn't matter. You'll find out exactly what your body can do, how many miles it can cover, how long 100 miles actually takes you. That was pure wisdom from experience. Bobby Keogh, 77 years old. His take's a little different at this time in his life. After 100 and 800-mile races, Bobby says, I'm signed up for a 48-hour race. I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to spend all 48 hours or 72 hours or 5 days or 6 days. But these conversations forced me to ask myself a question that I'd never really asked before. Mark, what's your actual objective here? What? What are you doing? If the goal is to finish 100 miles, if that's the goal, if that's it, no parameters, that's it, then pick the format and the race that's built to let you train hard and actually accomplish that. I hadn't been doing that. My willingness to show up and give it a shot was always high. My training is good, and on paper, it looked like it should work. But DNFs have visited me more than once, and I'm ready to shift that, not by avoiding hard races, but by being smarter about which ones I line up for. Run Woodstock, Hallucination 100, 16-mile loop, run 6 times to get 100 miles, 30-hour cutoff, and elevation somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 feet of total elevation gain over the whole 100 miles. Even this one isn't a guaranteed finish, but I'm ready to toe the line for it. And I'm eager to keep showing up in different formats and distances in the places where these communities actually live. It's genuinely not too late. Stephanie Irving didn't start running until 40, and she just crossed the finish line at Western States using the Silver Legend bib. What a glorious finish that was, and way to go, Stephanie. Pete Livingstone found this sport in his 60s, and he went on to finish 100s and 200s and set a 300-mile FKT, fastest known time. Lion Caldwell, he's still racing too, and teaching people like me, decades into this. And Bobby Keogh at 77 has 3 races in 2026 on the calendar where he'll cover more than 100 miles at each one. He's running more than me. Yes, he's run those 100, 800-mile races so far, but the point is he's still doing it. And on that note, one more thing I'll say briefly because I'm not ready to make it the centerpiece of an episode yet. These 37 conversations have taught me a lot about what athletes actually need out there, including things nobody really talks about, GI distress being one of them. I'm working on something related to that. I'm not going to say more today, but I wanted to let you know it's coming because it came directly out of these episodes and the people who shared their hardest miles with me. Woo! All right. This was a good self-supported effort. Let's call this part the cooldown. Before I wrap this up, I want to tell you something about how this show actually works because I think it says everything about the community I've been describing today. I targeted a handful of guests on my own. Stephanie Irving, number 1, Paul James Johnson, Kevin Flieger. I found them and I reached out and they said yes. But almost everything else that happened after that, the guests brought it. Kevin Brunson came on to talk about run streaking. I didn't even know what that was. Runeveryday.com. 18 years he was at it. Kevin found Tim Hardy, a guy who also has been running 18 years, but started, 80 days after Kevin started. So Tim came on the show. And then Tim found Chris and Michael Nicolaitis, brothers who are run streakers. And all 4 of them ended up on an episode of the show together. So 4 guests, 1 host, and 1 episode. A whole community of streakers I never would have found on my own. Pete Livingstone led me to Clifford Matthews. And Cliff, quietly, consistently, has been one of the most connective people in the entire network of this show. He runs alongside Mark Workmeister. He cheers on Lion Caldwell. He's a devoted fan of Gail Leedy. He's inspired by Bobby Keogh. Cliff Matthews has contributed more to this podcast than most people will ever know because he and Pete together opened a door to so many of these extraordinary guests. Paul James Johnson introduced me to Troy Ide. And Kevin Flieger, who I reached out to cold, recently offered to pace me for a few loops at the Woodstock race because he's run it before and he just wanted to help. That's not a podcast guest, that's a runner friend. Every single person who has come on this show has said some version of the same thing before we're done. Hey, you should talk to so-and-so. They'd be great on this podcast. That energy, that generosity is what has propelled this show forward. It's the community doing what the community does, showing up for each other, passing the baton. And now I want to say every name out loud because every one of them deserves to be heard. You've heard me mention many of them already today. Paul James Johnson, Catra Corbett, John Parks, Cliff Matthews, Kevin Flieger, Lion Caldwell, Ray Mina, Jim Glenn, Miriam Gilbert, Gail Leedy, Bobby Keogh, Kevin Brunson, Tim Hardy, Mark Workmeister, AJW, Andy Jones Wilkins, Ed Eddinghausen, Stephanie Irving, Pete Livingstone, Dr. Tanya Olson, and Troy Ide. And these are the ones I haven't mentioned today. And every bit of them is just as important. Julia Esther Jones, David Dix, Bernie Reinerson, Sam Hill, Ruperto Romero, Lori Rottmeyer, Taylor Nichols, Dave Perry, Keith Allison, Jenny Hitchings, Leslie Cohen, Pamela Chapman-Markle, Ann Onina, who's about to kiss that rock at Hard Rock again this year. Go in. Ray Sharp, Lisa Pizzoni, and Henry Howard, my coach, whose fingerprints are on everything I do out there, whether I say it or not. 37 episodes. Every single one of these people gave me something I didn't expect, and I'm grateful for all of them. Every single one of them gave me something I didn't expect. The podcast started out as one thing, celebrating people over 60 doing hard things. And then I met these people and I listened to them, and something happened I didn't plan for. The podcast transformed me, not just as a runner, as a person getting older who wants to stay fit, stay curious, stay connected to the community. And here's what I think actually happened. I'm working on this out a little bit as I say it right now in front of you. The Cocodona experience with Paul didn't come out of nowhere. It landed the way it did because I'd already spent the better part of 2 years absorbing the insights of all these extraordinary people. They gave me the intellectual framework. They gave me the language. They gave me the permission to think about this sport differently. And then Paul invited me out to Cocodona, and I got boots on the ground. And all of it, the interviews, the conversations, the questions I asked, and the answers I didn't expect, it was all real and physical, and I felt it. That's when the dots connected. I think what I'm realizing maybe right now in this moment as I say this out loud is that the transformation was never one thing. It was cumulative. It was the people. It was the miles. It was the questions. It was showing up for 37 episodes and being willing to listen, actively listening, as AJW complimented me. Thank you, AJW. And now, with the production team handling the work I shouldn't have been doing alone, I get to do more of all of it. More conversations, more boots on the ground, more races, more community, more data. Pack out your trash. Find your evolving why. If you think it's too late, it isn't. DNF means data, not failure. And if you're over 60 and you're wondering what's still possible, I hope this show is a part of your answer. I'm Mark Vega, and this is Run Long After 60. I'll see you out on the trails.